Hi everyone. People often ask me, Muniba, what is the secret to connecting with people? And I smile, because communication is not just about the words we say. It is about the way we make people feel. Today, I want to share with you 9 tips that can transform the way you communicate, not just to speak better, but to touch hearts and build bridges. Tip number 1, listen to understand, not to reply. Too often, we wait for our turn to speak instead of truly hearing the other person. Communication begins with listening. Tip 2, be authentic. Don't try to impress people with big words. Impress them with your honesty. People forget what you say, but they remember how genuine you were. Tip 3, work on your body language. A smile, an open posture and eye contact can speak louder than words. Sometimes silence with presence is the strongest communication. Tip 4, clarity is kindness. Speak clearly with intention. Avoid complicating your message. Simplicity makes it memorable. Tip 5, expand your vocabulary through reading. The more you read, the more words you have to express your feelings beautifully. Reading gives you depth. Tip 6, practice empathy. Before you speak, step into the other person's shoes. Words coming from empathy heal rather than hurt. Tip 7, control your tone. You may have the right message, but if your tone is harsh, the message will be lost. The tone of compassion is always more powerful than the tone of authority. Tip 8, be confident but humble. Confidence makes your words impactful, and humility makes them relatable. People connect with those who are human, not perfect. And tip 9, practice every day. Communication is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Whether it is talking to a friend, journaling, or even speaking to yourself in the mirror, practice turns fear into fluency. When we think of communication, the first thing that comes to mind is speaking how to say the right words, how to deliver them beautifully, how to impress people with our style. But let me share something with you. Communication does not begin with speaking, it begins with listening. Not the kind of listening where you nod your head while secretly preparing your reply, but the kind of listening where you allow yourself to step into someone else's world. Because when we truly listen, we are not just hearing words, we are hearing feelings, fears, dreams, and struggles. And in that moment, the other person feels valued. Isn't that what all of us really want? To be heard, to be understood, to be acknowledged. Let me take you to a memory. I remember once sitting with a young girl after a talk. She had waited in the crowd just to meet me. When she started speaking, I noticed something. Her voice was trembling. She wasn't looking for answers. She wasn't expecting me to give her a life-changing piece of advice. She simply wanted someone to listen. I sat there quietly, nodding, holding her words with respect. And after a while, she smiled and said, "Thank you for listening. That's all I needed." At that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the greatest gift of communication is not our voice, but our silence filled with presence. And that brings me to authenticity, because communication without authenticity is like a body without a soul. You can dress it up with fancy words, you can polish it with perfect grammar, but if it does not come from a place of truth, people will feel it. We think we need to be impressive, but what we really need is to be real. And being real does not mean being flawless, it means being human. When you speak with authenticity, your imperfections become your strength. Your pauses, your stumbles, your unpolished honesty, they all become part of your unique voice, and that is what touches hearts. There was a time when I believed I needed to speak perfectly in order to inspire people. I thought I had to use strong, powerful words and never show vulnerability. But the more I tried to sound perfect, the more disconnected I felt. One day, in the middle of a speech, I forgot my lines. For a second I froze, and then I simply admitted it. I laughed and said, "I forgot what I wanted to say, but let me tell you what I feel right now." And the room filled with warmth, laughter, and understanding. That day, I learned that authenticity carries more weight than perfection ever will. So, my friends, if you want to improve your communication skills, start here. Listen with your heart and speak with your truth. When someone is talking to you, resist the urge to interrupt. Resist the temptation to craft your reply before they finish. Just give them the space to be seen. And when it's your turn to speak, don't wear a mask. Speak from your own story, your own emotions, your own truth. Because people may not always remember your exact words, but they will always remember how you made them feel. I often say that listening is like water. It nourishes the roots of relationships. Without it, no amount of beautiful words will keep connections alive. And authenticity is like sunlight. It allows the real colors of your personality to shine. Together, listening and authenticity form the foundation of meaningful communication. Without them, everything else becomes decoration. So next time you find yourself in a conversation, ask yourself, am I truly listening? Am I being real in what I say? If the answer is yes, then you are already on your way to becoming a powerful communicator, not because of eloquence, but because of presence. Because in the end, communication is not about impressing others. It is about making them feel heard, valued, and understood. When we think about communication, most of us focus on the words we choose. But let me tell you something. Long before your words reach someone's ears, your body and your tone have already spoken. Isn't it true that sometimes a single look tells us more than 1,000 sentences? A smile can invite someone in, while folded arms can push them away. Eye contact can build trust, while avoiding it can create distance. Your body is always speaking, even when your lips are silent, and often it speaks louder than you realize. I remember once meeting a group of people for a session. I had prepared my words carefully, but the moment I entered the room, I could sense a wall of distance. Everyone was polite, but their posture was stiff, their arms crossed and their faces unreadable. It didn't matter what I was saying. My words were simply floating in the air. So I paused, put away my notes, and simply smiled. Slowly, their body language shifted. Arms unfolded, shoulders relaxed, and eyes softened. And that's when real communication began. It wasn't my words that connected us at first. It was my body speaking before my voice did. Tone works in the same way. Think about it. How many times have you heard someone say, "I'm fine," and you instantly knew they weren't? That's because their tone betrayed the truth their words were trying to hide. Tone carries emotions, and emotions are the real language of the heart. You may have the right words, but if your tone is sharp, dismissive, or impatient, those words will lose their power. On the other hand, a gentle and compassionate tone can make even the simplest sentence feel like a gift. Let me share an example. A few years ago, I was speaking to a young boy who had failed in his exams. He came to me with his head down, convinced that his life was over. I could have said, "It's okay, you will do better next time." But I didn't just rely on words. I softened my voice, leaned in, and said, "You are not defined by your marks. You are so much more than this." It wasn't just the words that gave him hope. It was the way they were spoken. His eyes lifted, and for the first time that day, I saw a spark return to his face. That's the magic of tone. It breathes life into words. Sometimes we forget that communication is not only about transferring information, it is about transferring emotions. Imagine standing in front of an audience and delivering the most beautifully written speech, but in a monotone voice with no expression, no energy, no warmth. Do you think people would remember it? Probably not. But if you deliver even simple words with passion, with sincerity, with energy, people will carry those words with them for a long time. We need to be mindful because our bodies and our tones reveal us. They reveal our intentions, our attitudes, and sometimes even the feelings we try to hide. That's why it's important to align our body and tone with our message. If you are talking about kindness, let it show in your smile. If you are sharing a message of hope, let your tone carry warmth, because when body, tone, and words work together, communication becomes powerful. I know that some of you may feel nervous when you speak. Your hands may shake, your voice may tremble, and you may worry that people will notice. Let me tell you something. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with sincerity. Even if your voice shakes, if your tone carries truth, and your body language reflects openness, people will listen. Vulnerability in your presence is not weakness, it is authenticity, and authenticity always speaks louder than polish. So, as you work on improving your communication skills, don't only focus on what you want to say. Pay attention to what your body is saying before you speak, and what your tone is saying while you speak. Be aware that every gesture, every glance, every pause, every rise and fall of your voice is sending a message, and sometimes those unspoken messages are the ones that leave the deepest impact, because in the end, people may forget your exact words, but they will never forget the warmth in your tone and the openness in your body that made them feel seen and valued. Clarity, empathy, and confidence, these three elements are like the heartbeat of communication. Without them, our words may reach someone's ears, but they will never truly reach their heart. Let me start with clarity. Have you ever spoken to someone who used so many complicated words, so much jargon, that by the end you were more confused than enlightened? That's what happens when we focus on sounding smart instead of being understood. Real clarity is kindness. When we speak with simplicity, when we choose words that are easy to follow, we make it easier for others to walk alongside us. Communication is not about how much you know. It's about how much you can share in a way that others can understand. I remember once attending a lecture where the speaker was highly knowledgeable, but every sentence was loaded with technical terms. People kept nodding, but I could see in their eyes that they were lost. Later that day, another person spoke on the very same topic, but in simple, relatable language. She used examples from everyday life, she painted pictures with her words, and suddenly the entire room came alive with understanding. That was the difference clarity makes. It transforms communication from something heavy into something beautiful. Now let's talk about empathy. If clarity makes your message understandable, empathy makes it unforgettable. Empathy means you don't just speak to someone's mind, you speak to their heart. You try to imagine what it feels like to be in their situation. You pause before speaking harshly because you know words can wound. You choose kindness because you understand that everyone is fighting a battle you may never see. When empathy enters your communication, people no longer feel like they are being lectured. They feel like they are being cared for. I once spoke to a group of parents whose children were struggling in school. They were frustrated, some even angry, and they wanted quick solutions. Instead of giving them a list of things they should do, I began by saying, "I know how heavy your hearts must feel right now. I know how much pressure you carry because you want the best for your children." The moment I said that, the tension in the room melted. They felt seen, they felt understood, and only then were they ready to hear suggestions. That's the power of empathy. It opens the door before you try to walk through with your message. And then there is confidence, that quiet force that gives weight to your words. But let me be clear, confidence is not arrogance. Confidence does not mean speaking the loudest in the room or pretending to know everything. True confidence comes from within. It comes from believing in your message, from knowing that your words carry value, and from respecting yourself enough to share your truth. Confidence makes your words steady, and when your words are steady, people trust them. I recall one of my early speeches. I was so nervous that my hands were trembling and my voice quivered. I kept thinking, why would anyone listen to me? And then, in that moment of doubt, I reminded myself, I am not here to prove myself. I am here to share something that might help even one person. That shift gave me the courage to speak with sincerity. My voice may not have been perfect, but it was steady with belief. And that was enough. That's what confidence really is, the courage to show up with your message, even if your voice shakes. When you combine clarity, empathy, and confidence, your communication becomes a bridge. Clarity ensures people understand you. Empathy ensures they feel connected to you. And confidence ensures they trust you. Without clarity, your message gets lost. Without empathy, your message feels cold. Without confidence, your message lacks strength. But when all three come together, your words have the power to inspire, to comfort, and to ignite change. So as you speak, ask yourself, am I making this simple enough to be understood? Am I speaking with compassion so that it touches the heart? Am I carrying myself with the confidence that my words matter? If the answer is yes, then you are not just communicating, you are creating an impact. Because in the end, clarity makes your message understood, empathy makes it felt, and confidence makes it remembered. When we talk about communication, many people assume it's a gift. You either have it or you don't. But let me tell you, communication is not a talent reserved for a few. It is a skill that can be learned, refined, and strengthened every single day. Just like a muscle grows stronger with exercise, your ability to communicate grows when you practice. And the beauty of it is that practice doesn't always need a stage or a microphone. It begins in the smallest, simplest moments of your daily life. Think about this. How often do we speak without really paying attention to how we're speaking? We rush through conversations, we answer without thought, and we let opportunities to connect slip away. But when you turn every interaction into practice, communication becomes second nature. Talking to a friend, engaging with a colleague, sharing your thoughts with family, these are not just ordinary exchanges, they are training grounds. Every time you speak with intention, you are shaping your skill, polishing your presence, and learning how to touch another person's heart more effectively. One of the simplest ways to practice is through reading. Reading exposes you to new words, new ways of expression, new emotions woven into stories. When you read, you are not just absorbing information. You are feeding your imagination and expanding the vocabulary of your soul. The more you read, the more resources you have to express yourself clearly and creatively. And when you speak, those words, those expressions, that depth of thought, all of it flows naturally from within you. Another way to practice is journaling. Writing down your thoughts, your reflections, your experiences gives you clarity. Sometimes, when we try to express ourselves, our words get stuck because our thoughts are tangled. Journaling untangles them. It gives your mind a chance to practice putting emotions into words, fears into sentences, and dreams into language. And the more you practice on paper, the easier it becomes to share with others. Then there's the mirror. It may sound funny, but speaking to yourself in the mirror is one of the most powerful tools to build confidence. Because when you look into your own eyes and speak, you're not only practicing your words, you're practicing presence. You become more aware of your tone, your expressions, your posture. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, but with time, it becomes a safe space where you can experiment, grow, and prepare for the moments when it truly matters. Of course, practice also means daring to step out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you need to raise your hand in class when you're unsure, or speak up in a meeting when you're nervous, or share your thoughts in front of a group even when your voice trembles. Those moments are not failures, they are practice sessions in disguise. Each one teaches you something, each one strengthens your muscle of communication. And little by little, you find yourself less afraid, more fluent, and more confident in expressing your truth. I remember a time when I used to avoid speaking in front of people. I would think, what if I make a mistake? What if they laugh? What if I fail? But then I realized the only true failure is not trying at all. Every attempt, no matter how imperfect, is progress. Every stumble teaches you how to stand stronger the next time. And slowly, through repetition, through practice, through persistence, I discovered that communication is not about perfection, it's about connection. And connection grows only when you dare to show up again and again. So practice not to impress, but to express. Practice not to sound flawless, but to sound real. Practice not to prove yourself, but to share yourself. Because communication is not a performance, it's a gift you give to others. And the more you practice giving it, the more natural it becomes. And remember, growth is never sudden. Just like a seed does not become a tree overnight, your communication skills will not transform instantly. But with daily nurturing with reading, writing, speaking, and daring, you will see growth. Slowly, steadily, you will find that your words no longer stumble, your tone no longer wavers, and your presence no longer hides. Instead, your words will flow, your tone will inspire, and your presence will shine. Because in the end, communication is not mastered in a single day. It is strengthened every day through the simple, consistent practice of showing up and speaking with intention. My friends, remember this. Communication is not about impressing others. It's about expressing yourself in a way that brings light into someone's heart. When you listen deeply, speak sincerely, and connect with empathy, you don't just become a good communicator. You become unforgettable. So go out there, use these 9 tips, and let your voice not just be heard, but felt. Because in the end, your words have the power to inspire, to heal, and to change.